don't find in nature pure gold. It's always got a little silver in it. I mean, Tobaga itself, the reason why it's religious there is because it has a smell to it as well. It smells like blood.
Whoa, really?
I'm spending money like I just got paid. $100 bills, tell them keep the change. Come on.
When you're doing the engraving, you can just carve off the soft gold off the top, and you have this harder base.
If pop a bottle about to make it rain, let me give you something now to celebrate. Come on.
The one parameter I found interesting was they rustled. They were described by William Smith as them
And
rustling.
if you're wondering why I move the way I do, I just feel so good.
Wait, so rappers nowadays have a platinum grill. You're saying Joseph Smith had platinum, not goggles. That's disrespectful. What do they call them? Not interpreters. No, interpreters. Yes.
The rims around the interpreters.
Okay.
And that was actually the only place that was really mined or developed into metal is Colombia.
The following is an episode of Ward Radio and does not represent the thoughts or the opinions of KHTS, its owners, or any of its affiliates, nor does it represent the official opinion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I'm your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Ed Thomas and Jerry Grover, author of a myriad publications, most recently, Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon. He just barely described to us what is Ziph, which was a very kind of mysteriously mentioned metal in the Book of Mormon that now we found out has ancient Arabic and you said Sumerian roots, was it?
No, it was Aramaic.
Aramaic roots. Okay, I'm sorry. And we're going to dive right into what was the metallurgy of the Book of Mormon, because as a geologist and also somebody who studied mechanical engineering, especially materials and so on and so forth, this is right up your alley. Isn't it pretty simple? The golden plates were just the golden plates, or is there a little bit more to this? Jerry Grover, go.
Okay, well, the first question, which if critics were really smart, they would have asked, but I
yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, but pointed out is that part of the problem with looking at, again, I look at these things scientifically, right?
Okay,
and so they're called the golden plates. They weren't really. They were described as golden for the most part.
Okay.
They also had, the engravings were black. Okay. They were described as having a cement or stain inside the engraving, so they were black.
Yeah.
But the question is, since all basically gold, you don't find in nature pure gold. It's always got a little silver in it, either 5 to 40%.
That's originally what electrum was in the very first coins that were made in Lydia, I believe, was the first nation state, but city state to make gold coins out of their ingots, and had a lion on the cover. And it was electrum, which even up until, gosh, it's only the past like 1,500 years, people believed, they thought electrum was its own element. Yeah. Because it was a mixture of silver and gold that occurred naturally, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, and that's because I'm not going to go into all the geology, but basically you have a depositional environment that has a certain temperature pressure regime.
Okay.
It's basically hydrothermic fluids that have the gold and silver in solution.
Yeah.
And the point on that spectrum where gold comes out is the same place kind of where silver comes out. So basically they come out in the same basically formation. Like if it's a vein of gold, it's going to have some silver because it comes out in the same type of environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
And so so that's why. But they did not have the. In fact, it's interesting you mentioned that the electrum and Lydia's. They did not really have the ability to separate the gold from the silver till after Lehi was long gone. And that was like Greece when they started doing the coinage. So the question is, why were the plates, if they had some silver content, why were they not black? Why did they not have a black tarnish over all of them? Okay.
Oh, is that where the black came from? If they were etched, could they have been gilded?
Well, that's the question that had to be answered. Was there some way that they were able to be, because they had to be not necessarily pure gold. You have to, in order to be resistant to corrosion, you have to have over some percentage of gold, like 59%. But
Okay.
so you could argue that, well, maybe they wouldn't have been because they were a higher gold percentage. But there was actually a technique that they used to create, it's called depletion gilding, where they would create gold, a very thin gold surface, by adding plant acid to it and burnishing it and doing it multiple times. And what it did is it would oxidize the copper or silver. That was typically the alloy. And this is kind of getting into this tumbaga, that then they would create, it could have a base metal that wasn't pure gold, but they could get this very thin layer of gold, 10 microns thick or so on the surface, or not necessarily have to be pure, but at least 59% or 60% pure. So,
and it seems like this would answer a lot of critiques that people have had of early Joseph Smith, because we know the size of the golden plates because we don't have the golden plates still. They were obviously taken up by God, as the story goes, but we have the box that he stored it in. And we also have descriptions from at least 8, 9, 10 people that were able to heft them and hold them and so on and so forth. And all of them said they weighed anywhere between 50 and 80 pounds. We know that size of a gold brick would have weighed like 250 pounds. So it had to have been some kind of alloy that made them perceivably golden, because then again, they were never called the gold plates. That was a colloquialism that came out later. They always were claimed to have had, quote, the appearance of gold, which would lend a little bit more credence to a lot of these ancient processes that you were talking about. So my mind has been blown about Ziff. Now you're saying that you think the plates of gold, I've heard tumbaga referenced as a possibility. Is what you're describing now different than tumbaga?
Well,
or is it just kind of a different version thereof? What is this?
Well, see, tumbaga was a name given to when the conquistadors came. It was actually in Colombia, where they found, and actually they got kind of pissed off because they collected all this gold. Sent it back, melted it down. It was like mostly freaking copper, So they figured out everything that looks like gold over here isn't gold.
Yeah, there's a great Wikipedia article on tumbaga. Basically, it was considered the amongst ancient Mayan and Proto-Mayan cultures, the metal of religious artifacts, and it had the appearance of gold, so much so the early conquistadors thought it was gold. However, it's an alloy, I believe, of copper, tin, and silver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's no tin in it. So
there's no tin in it?
It can be copper and gold, but also copper, silver, gold. So
I'm sorry, right. Copper, silver, not tin. I'm an idiot. Tin is what you make pots and pans out of.
Well, you're not an idiot. Nordic gold does have tin, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I'm just saying that.
Right.
So, and tumbaga, though it had the appearance of gold, when the Europeans took it back as kind of like the evidence of their conquest, and they started melting it down in order to make their gold bars, they realized, dude, you gave us a bunch of copper that's only like 10% gold.
Right, exactly.
It's like all of that disease in the mountains, all of that war, and all we got was 10% gold. So all right. So
what I had to show, though, was it has to exist because Nephi made plates, right? And so he had to have that technology. So I did research there, and it is found. That technique is actually found even in Mesopotamia back to like 2000 BC and in Egypt. So it's not really been found in amongst the Jews, but it was a known technology, this depletion gilding.
Well, and if you say it was found in Egypt, there's a stronger correlation between the northern kingdom and Joseph of Egypt and the northern kingdom than there is of Judah in the southern kingdom. Right. And Nephi and Lehi came from the northern kingdom, and even the brass plate said we were a descendant of Joseph.
Right.
So, wow, that is really interesting. Keep going.
Yeah, so that's kind of the elements of the metallurgy, is saying, okay, who could have known what, and did they have the technique? So yes, we can establish that it was Nephi had it, and at least Mormon had it. We don't really know intervening if it was lost or something is possible, because the small plate's kind of weird, because they kind of say we ran out of plates and they couldn't write anymore. It's like, why didn't you just make any new ones? Well, maybe over those years, maybe somebody had not. Maybe those are just the original plates Nephi made, and it didn't carry out. I don't know. I'm just saying there's some question there.
Yeah.
But so then the question is, okay, we figured out, yes, they can exist over time and have a golden appearance. The other question was, okay, what about this black in the engravings? What's this black? Now, the description doesn't talk about them. There's no evidence that the engravings were like it was some corrosion byproduct, right? Because what would happen is you have this surface of gold, and you cut through it, and maybe you're hitting a base metal like copper, the base alloy, right?
Yeah.
And so in the base alloy, what looks to have been done was a patina, which is something you can add or oxidize the copper, and it protects the underlying copper. I mean, it basically oxidizes and creates a black material, which then protects the unoxidized copper.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's if you can bring up the front of piece of my book.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean of the chronology of the Book of Mormon?
No, the Ziff book, if you've got it there.
Did you hand me a Ziff book? I don't think I got a Ziff book.
No, but
man.
I mean, it's like 32 on the.
Oh, you mean, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not the best image, but
yeah.
Basically, there's a guy that actually experimented, not LDS at all. He just, there's these metallurgy guys that just like, they're nerds, right?
Totally, yeah.
Just fiddle around with stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, he just did these various scratchings on this depletion gilding, and then fired it, heated it and different things. And actually, one of these he scratched, and there's left in the scratches themselves black. That second from the top. So I think we figured out the way that they actually created that. So we have techniques to create the black. Then the other question I had, again, we talked about the weight. I wanted to figure out what is the range, what are the alloy mix we're talking about? Does it make sense? So you've got to have you got to figure out the thickness of the plates.
Okay, yeah.
Which, I've seen some recent podcasts like attacking this, that they were too thin of what I calculate. But basically what I did is you have these, okay, it's a copper plate as thin as copper plate or window planes or something. Not really scientific, but I actually looked those up and says, well, you could get down to this thickness. Nobody had a micrometer measuring them, right?
Yeah.
So, but the one parameter I found interesting was they rustled. They were described by William Smith as them rustling, like thick parchment.
And Emma, yeah.
And Emma did. And then Catherine. They moved the plates around, so they weren't necessarily. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can recreate that. That may tell me.
Yeah, how thin does the metal have to go before it rustles?
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
And so, but so then the question is, okay, you got to get the right type of metal. I mean, in terms of temper, hardness, modulus of elasticity, that kind of thing. So I actually did research, and that they had measured hardness of ancient metal work, and so I actually had copper. I just got copper created plates in different thicknesses that matched what you would expect in ancient metallurgy of plates.
Okay.
And did that experiment and found the range, which, will give you that rustling effect, right? And it was
now, is this like when you go to Universal Studios and you're in the soundstage show and they're taking the piece of metal and shaking it so it sounds like thunder, but now you're like kind of flipping around the thin metal and it sounds like it rustles?
I just kind of think, the reality is at a certain point you can't even do anything because it's too thick to even bend. So it's obvious, and I could get it to make kind of a sound that would, and I didn't have like a full stack, so you maybe get something different, but I got a pretty good range, and that's why it's kind of interesting because I've recent podcasts of some of the or I don't know what their podcasts call themselves, but basically I've kind of been attacked because it says, that's too thin, but the reality is they believe that there was some set of plates, right? Okay, JosephSmith made them, but no one is disputing that they didn't make that sound.
Yeah.
So whatever they are, they're going to have to be, and in fact, in modern, it's going to even be worse.
Yeah,
they're going to even be thinner. So they can make that because it's a harder, So I found it interesting that I'm getting attacked, and actually, if they looked at their own theory, they have to agree that even though it had to make a rustling. So.
Yeah, they are the Exmo and Idiot podcast network.
Yeah.
I go, jeez. All right. Okay, hold on. Well, don't give me anything I got to edit out. All right, Ed?
No, you keep it in.
Yeah. Okay, and so once I had a thickness, then the question is, can I calculate, what's the number of plates in the stack? There's these other questions that come up because, again, I have to try to back calculate an alloy mix. So I actually looked at some ancient kind of discs that were done in Colombia, where they had measured the deflection. Because the other question is, plate stack, if it's anciently worked, they're not going to be rolled. They're not going to be like perfectly to a micrometer flat.
They'll be pounded?
Yeah, pounded and then polished, right? They had a polishing, but they weren't going to be completely, like we out of a
They didn't have
machine.
giant industrial rollers that have
Exactly.
used lasers in order to make sure the surface is completely flat. Yes.
Right. And so I looked at the deflection, meaning the difference in the surface. Then if they're sitting on it, you get a range of what that they sit on each other. And so it looked like about 50% void space was a reasonable, because that's the question because we know the dimensions, we know weight, right?
It's like handmade pottery and plates in clay. You can never get them to lay flat on each other.
Right.
There's always, is that void space, I assume, is what you're referring to? Okay.
And so then I can now, since I have some rough dimensions and some rough weight, and I know on the number of plates, so I can tell you calculate the amount of gold on the outside that was, and then, so that's the question is, can I calculate the alloy mix? And it looks like about 8 karat gold, meaning before they were depletion gilded. So 4 to 8 karat.
Whoa.
Which is not a super high percentage.
No, it's not.
Right. So you didn't necessarily need that much gold to do this anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
And gold may have been used more as a preserving agent to avoid corrosion over time than necessarily a decorative agent to make it look more shiny and beautiful.
Exactly. I mean, it served both purposes.
Wow.
Don Bradley will say that the black was the black versus the gold. This has religious significance. I mean, maybe that's true too. I mean, Tobaga itself, the reason why it's religious there is because it has a smell to it as well. It smells like blood.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Whoa. Is it because of the iron content? There's a lot of iron.
I think the copper, just the way the alloy. I don't know. I don't know if it was tested the olfactory, but that's what the conquistadors and that said, and it has the reddish appearance once you cut through it. It's because it's got copper in there.
Is that why King Noah dug it so much? Is because it smelled like blood?
Yeah, it's possible. That's what I'm saying. So his was probably some low grade Tumbaga or something like that, right? And there may not have been that much of it because it just said he took a fifth of what the people had, and that's what went on the outside of its temples. So that was the other interesting thing is Ziff, when we looked at it, it also had another meaning. It was also had another use. It was used on the outside ornamental of buildings in Arabia.
Really?
Yeah, and they would actually use it as these apotrophic, if I pronounce that correctly, where it'd be like a spider or something. They would put these figures of animals or birds, but they put it like on the entrance to the city, so the spirits couldn't come in. It would keep them out. So it has kind of this. So maybe he was using it that way too,
Yeah.
And this is all stuff. There's no way Joseph Smith could have known this.
I don't even ask that question. No, I'm just saying. People always ask that. I'm like, why would I care about that? It's self-evident.
Okay.
It's self-evident that it's self-evident that it's ridiculous that Joseph could have possibly known this.
A lot of people, they write their books, say, oh, here's why Joseph was like, come on. Just read my book. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
This stuff I write is not like debatable that he would even have any clue of. So I'm just saying that's why I never asked that question because I don't need to.
Right.
It'd just be dumb. It'd just be a waste of space in my book.
Right.
Okay. So do you think this? Well, first off, continue. I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought.
Right. So anyway, I think I've got pretty good idea of, we have a good idea of what the plates were made of and how they were used. And then I also took that alloy mix, and there's like a chart where because you can't work it's a
triangle.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah. And so you have gold, copper, silver. Certain mixes of that alloy are not very workable. They get too brittle. So I had to make sure it fell within the range of workable.
Too soft or too brittle.
And so it fell in the right range of workable metal. So again, that was the point, is again just to kind of show probably what it consisted of. So that's kind of where I arrived at. Now it was useful knowing the number of plates, because then you can ask, can the Book of Mormon fit on all these? And other people have done. I didn't care so much about that because I'd already kind of done the translation of the characters document, so I actually knew how many words per character. I could use my own translation and calculate that, to see.
So how many pages would it have needed?
Well, I'd calculated the potential mix was 300 to 600 based on the ranges, and it could fit on like 170. 140, 170, and then you have the sealed portion. So, and it fits within the parameters. Again, I couldn't give you an exact number of plates because you do have like the void space can be slight. I just there's a range, and again, you have a range of weight.
And also, they might have written bigger characters in one handwriting than another. Yeah, I get it.
And the other unique, interesting thing is it would have been the reason why Tumbaga is a great thing is because you can just, when you're doing the engraving, you can just carve off the soft gold off the top, and you have this harder base. So it makes it easier to engrave because you're just carving. You don't have to dig into the base harder metal.
All those overzealous volunteer Sunday school instructors that are always like, "Can you imagine how hard it was? Every word has been written for you." And you're like, "Well, actually, he was just scratching off the overlaying metal. You know, let's give the guy credit. He was running away from Lamanites, maybe not chiseling out the the golden plates themselves."
It obviously takes more skill than I have, but that doesn't mean very much. But I actually did take like a little obsidian awl and show what I could. I actually have a couple plates I've already made. I have coated with gold, 10 microns. I haven't done anything with them, but they're just sitting in my to-do list in the future to actually try to take them and just kind of recreate the exact.
Okay, you have to bring them in.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to use them.
So okay,
I'm just scared because it cost me like $2,000 a piece. I don't want somebody to wreck them.
Come on.
Wait a second. So then now we actually have accidentally calculated the worth of the golden plates, because think about it. If you said it needed 300 to 600 plates, calculating the void space and the gilding and everything, and each plate that you've tried to recreate cost $2,000, we can say 300 to 600 times $2,000
each. It costs $2,000 because they actually charged me to electroplate them. So.
Okay, well,
Mormon just did that himself. He didn't really.
He did it himself.
I don't think he contracted that out. Maybe he did, but
I like thinking they're $600,000 plates.
Well, they are. Well, it's like the B.H. Roberts guys called me up and says, "Hey, somebody wants to recreate these plates. Can you help?" I'm like, "Well, number one, this takes skill. Nobody does depletion gilding or makes
For that plant acid you were talking about.
Yeah, and number two, it's like that's a lot of freaking gold, even if it's just plated. So that's an expensive proposition.
You got $500K in gold for us to start messing around with acid and that gold just to see what happens.
Yeah.
That's the price of a front porch in Los Angeles, I think.
Yeah, for real.
Or in Cardin's Beverly Hills Second Ward, maybe a post.
Yeah, a post, exactly. That's a brick in the driveway.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we wanted to touch on, I know we don't have much time, so
okay, hit it.
Is also the metallurgy of the spectacles.
Oh, that's going to have to be its own.
Okay.
That's going to, well, I don't know. Can we do it in 1 minute?
Hit it. Basically, they're described as silver. We know silver would be black, right, if it sat there. So it can't be silver, so what the freak is it?
Right.
What metal does not corrode over time? The only one is platinum. And it's interesting because platinum.
Wait, so rappers nowadays have a platinum grill. You're saying Joseph Smith had platinum, not goggles. That's disrespectful. What do they call them? Not interpreters. No, interpreters.
Yeah, well,
right?
the rims around the interpreters.
Okay.
And that was actually the only place that was really mined or developed into metal is in Colombia anciently. So it's actually in the right general area. And so and the other thing that tells us is we know that the stones, the two interpreter stones, they're not talked about as being in anything. They're just, part of, there's the 16 and then those two, the brother Jared.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of know that the Nephites, because that metal was not really available earlier, they were the ones that created the spectacles. So does that make sense? So that's kind of a interesting.
Yeah, so brother Jared, he's just and Mosiah, they're just tooling around with stones, and then
they may have tried to put him in something, but the actual spectacles that were in the box had to have been Nephite because it wasn't available until that time period. So it kind of, again, some esoteric fact only I would care about.
No, I hear you.
Again, these are my research. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care if anyone reads my crap or not. For me, I just like, this is interesting, and I find it interesting.
Okay, so are you a Tumbaga guy then? Do you think actual Mesoamerican Tumbaga, as we have found it and it sits in the museum, is what the gold plates were made out of? Or do you think it was made out of a similar process but different enough you would call it its own thing?
Yeah, they did have gold gilding as well. They actually had a form of electroplating that they had discovered way back, but it's usually only very thin. I think the gold gilding is also a possibility. So I think it could be any of the two.
Oh, I got you. Gold gilding or electroplating with like potato batteries and zinc.
Yeah, what
something.
they may have done is done a gold gilding and then depletion gilded
Right.
that gold that was on the gild
Right.
or something like that to make it a little better. So those are and again, I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to give the possibilities.
Right.
I wish I had the plates, but I don't.
Do you? Okay. And last final question in the last 25 seconds. Is any one of these processes that you're mentioning wildly more likely than any of the others, or are all three of these processes equal candidates for reality for you?
Well, I think you just have to. The gold gilding is a possibility, and the tumbaga is a possibility. So it may be, hey, maybe the tumbaga was the ziph, and the gold gilding because, it was more pure or something like that. And I don't know. So.
Okay. Well, then our next question is going to be, what type of burlap was the sack that he Joseph Smith hid them in made out of? And what wood were the planks of? No, I'm just kidding.
You want me to talk about that? The wrapping?
Oh, you know about that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The sacred bundles.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I guess
the sacred bundle process in Mesoamerica.
Okay, I thought I guess we got more to talk about. Unfortunately, we got to pay some bills, do a commercial break right now. This has been real and it's been fun. And it's been real fun as always. For this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com.
I just feel so good. Oh, I just feel so good.
Guys, thanks for watching the video. Before you go, please make sure that you like the video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please let this be the video in which we earn your subscription, and that you press the alert button so you're alerted to all of our fun live streams and standalone videos and community posts. Also, if you'd like to help us out, please consider joining the channel. Members get all kinds of cool perks and benefits. They get early access to a lot of our videos and special emoticons and emojis during our live streams and preferential treatment there. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, we have a super cool Discord. If you'd like to join our Discord, check us out on wardradio.com. There's a link to the Discord there. Also, you can sign up there for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a lot of fun, and you can put your email address in there. And if you'd like to contribute to the program, please consider looking us up on Venmo or on the Cash App. We're on both of those platforms. Also, if you just want to keep watching more content right about here and probably right about here are going to be some more videos. Please check those out. And as always, for this and more, please make sure that you look us up and check us out at wardradio.com.